Hello, good evening. It's Dr. Asatar Bear, and people often tell me I look like see me, and I say you look like Marx, and I always like to say I've got the mind of Marx, but the body of Engels. So there you have it. Well, last week in the class, we talked about the different states of consciousness that occur in meditation, that the activity of meditation and the practice of meditation, part of it is to get good at accessing, to the extent that one can, to get good at accessing these different states of consciousness, right? So, if we start at the very beginning, right, we're often in a free floating kind of, thoughts go from one thing to the next, right, with no particular focus, right? So the first kind of active state is to focus the mind, to concentrate, right? And concentration is something that doesn't just occur in meditation, right? That is a very basic skill. So one of the things that meditation is for, on a kind of broad level, is to help you get better at concentrating. So this is one of the things that makes it difficult because focusing your mind is hard. Your mind, it's like a horse that does not want to be saddled, right? So your mind is like always trying to throw you off, right? And I want to think about whatever I want to think about, right? And if you say no, it's time to focus, then your mind comes up with a million excuses of why it's not the time to focus, right? Um, uh, Now, if you concentrate on something that interests you, that you care about, especially if you care about getting good at it, or you care about you enjoy doing it, um, and you hold that focus for some period of time, it is often the case that you get into another state, right? That's very different, where it stops being such an effort, right? You don't have to fight to concentrate. You get in the zone, right? And it becomes easy, right? So the first state is called concentration. We call the second one contemplation. It's the flow state. It's being in the zone, right? So these are different states. You have to go through concentration to get in the zone, right? You don't get to the second one without having to go through the first one. Okay, so that's one of the other aspects of training in meditation, or the other point of meditation, you could say, is to be able to let yourself go, right, and get into that incredibly powerful, wonderful state of flow, right? Now, in order to do that, there's a kind of forgetting of yourself that has to happen, right? An abandoning of yourself in the activity, right? Because when you are self-conscious and always analyzing yourself, watching yourself, all this, um, that's really the enemy of this flow state, what I'm calling contemplation. Okay, it's not, it's you get so absorbed in the activity, you don't have time to doubt and second guess yourself, and am I doing this right, and whatever, right? You're just like, your concentration has like fully bloomed and then becomes something else. Okay. um, and then there's another state beyond that, we call the state of meditation, or samadhi, as it's called, where the experience opens up into one of the infinite, or the unlimited, right? um, and this is another, it's like a quantum leap beyond, right? um, and it all of the different traditions and practices and whatever have a way of talking about this, and they all sound very similar because they're describing the same state. Um, so concentration, contemplation, meditation, three states of consciousness that occur in meditation. So we talked about this last week. If you want to go back and review that, and whatever, if you haven't seen it, um, I go into more detail. So again, part of what we're doing in meditation is trying to get good at that, right? The state of meditation, this state of unity, is not something that you can really make happen, but you can get good at being open to that. You can get good at preparing the ground, right? Um, you can't make the sun shine on your crops, but if you've tilled the ground and you've planted the seeds carefully and you've controlled the pests and whatever, right? Those are the things that when the sun does come out, right, then you're ready, right? So that's one of the things we're doing in meditation. Okay, so now what I practice, what I teach right heart rhythm meditation, and this is a particular approach to meditation. So I want to talk a little bit about um, the different types of meditation or different approaches to meditation. But first, let's do a little bit of practice. That's what you guys are here for, after all. Um, so we'll just take a few minutes and start with that. All right. So take an active, upright posture. All right. Sit in a way that your back can be straight. Um, I like to have a cushion to support, like kind of like the back of my butt, that kind of the sacrum type of area. I've got a cushion here right now in my chair. Um, the knees should be lower than the hips. That helps you to have an upright spine and not have to put a lot of effort into it, right? If your knees are higher, you can still have an upright spine, but you're going to have to exert more force. You want to be upright yet relaxed. Okay, that's the posture. All right, you can put your hands on your thighs or your knees. You can have them folded. You want to be comfortable being still. All right, and then you close your eyes and you pay attention to your breath. And we want to make the breath deep and slow and full if we can, and heart centered. All of these things. So you can place a hand on your belly and feel your belly uh, expanding as you breathe in and contracting as you breathe out. Now, the full practice of heart rhythm meditation seeks to make the breath rhythmic by using the heartbeat. And this can be a challenge because you have to be able to feel your heartbeat. So there's a little trick for this, which is to take your take one of your hands and just take your fingertips and press them against your sternum here, right? Your Press them against your breastbone, right? And by maintaining that, just a little bit of pressure, right? See, I have my fingertips kind of, I'm just pressing lightly against my chest. It can help to feel the heartbeat if you're not already. Some people can feel their heartbeat quite easily, and others struggle with it. All right. So if you're feeling it, that's great. And if not, try this trick. If that still doesn't work for you, you just keep at it. Maybe you feel it occasionally. Just listen for it, look for it. All right. Now deepen your breath and lengthen your breath. Make your breath slower and feel as though it is your heart that is breathing. So that is your heart, the center of your emotions, of your feelings, takes in energy as you breathe in and radiates energy, gives out energy, expresses energy as you breathe out. Just as we do when we are in a conversation involves both listening and speaking. That is taking in the words and thoughts of others, and also expressing ourselves, contributing our own thoughts to the conversation. And there's a flow there, there's a rhythm there. And so we're seeking to do that on a more fundamental level now, on an energetic level. Now, if you can't feel your heartbeat, that's okay. You just continue to look forward. If you can feel it, try to bring it into rhythm with your breath. So that is, take a certain number of beats on the inhalation. I like to do 8 on the inhalation, but you see what works for you. And then do the same number of beats on the exhalation. Your breath is going to be much slower than it is normally. And try to make it fuller as well. That is, squeeze your abdominal muscles as you exhale to finish the exhalation, to breathe out more. And then allow your belly to expand and your chest to expand as you bring in the breath on the inhalation. We're really looking to make the breath optimal, to make it both bigger than your normal unconscious breath, but also much more subtle, to make it smooth, to make it slow, to make it very even, so there's no jigs or jags in your breathing. It's just like a river that endlessly flows. All right. We'll end our little session there. And uh, we'll I want to talk now about. We'll do another bit of practice in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about what are the um, what are the types of meditation. Right, every meditation practice comes out of a certain philosophy, right, and is usually associated with a certain religion as well. Okay, so heart rhythm meditation comes out of the tradition of Sufism, and it's embedded within Sufi philosophy, and so it has like a whole history and a whole, kind of like a belief structure and all this, right? Now, this is like a lot of things are like this, right? Like martial arts is like this. I don't know. I mean, this is another thing that I'm into, So martial arts usually have like a whole philosophy, right? Um, Now, do you need to know that in order to learn how to punch somebody in the face, right? Or armbar somebody or whatever, right? Not necessarily, Like you could learn the techniques without getting into the whole philosophy. I mean, right? Like you don't have to read a whole book about, you know, the philosophy of punching somebody in the face, right? You can just learn the technique. So the same is true of meditation. You don't need to get into the history of it all. You don't need to get into the philosophy of it all. You could just learn how to do it. Um, and there's a lot to be said for that because you don't know if you need all the philosophy necessarily, right? Um, let's see how this meditation stuff works, and then maybe I'll learn more about it, right? If I get into it, right? And that's perfectly fine. Um, but so that's why I always start with some practice, right? Because hopefully you experience something about that, and then if you want to learn more, right? Now the philosophy can be very helpful, right? Because it gives you a container. Because I'm going to be honest, some pretty mind-blowing stuff can happen when you meditate. And it can be incredibly confusing. And some of the experiences are amazing, some of them are difficult, very difficult. So it can be helpful to have like some kind of framework to kind of understand that, right? Um, so, and also we want to, when a lot of people at this point, right, have done some meditation somewhere along the line, right? I mean, this used to be something that was like totally like alien to the like American culture or whatever, right? Now it's becoming more of a, like if you go to a yoga class or whatever, you probably end with some meditation, maybe. I mean, lots of people have done some of it. So, I think we're at the point where we have like a, little bit of experience at least built up. Now, if you haven't done it at all, that's okay too. Um, all right. So what I've basically tried to convey to you guys is that um, there's a lot of similarities, right, between in different traditions. They have different ways of talking about it, but they're clearly talking about the same thing, right, in terms of this state of unity, right? But there are different ways of getting there. There are different uh, tactics or different techniques. Okay, and this can be confusing because it's like they seem to be suggesting very different practices or very different activities, right? So, um, I just want to get into that a little bit, right? All right. So, one way that a lot of like traditional or old ancient kind of practices of meditation developed is by saying, look, if we're trying to get to this transcendent place of unity, right? Here's the problem that we're confronted with. Okay, the problem is pretty much everything that we know is extremely limited, right? Like, what do we know? We know ourselves. We know our thoughts, our feelings. We know our capabilities. We have the experiences of life to go on. And what these experiences have basically taught us is that we are very, very limited, right? I mean, there's certain things we can do, but there's a lot that we can't do. Like, there's a lot that's out of our hands, and there's a lot of stuff that changes. And basically, what we know about ourselves is both limited and extremely transitory, right? So, how do we get to a place within ourselves that is unlimited, that is infinite, that is perfect? How do we when everything that we know is the opposite of that, right? Um, and so one tradition meditation says, look, the way that we do that is we rise above, right? Now, ancient yogis and mystics and whatever have noticed, for a long time that there's a flow of energy in the human body that rises, okay? And in yoga, this is called kundalini. Uh, so that means the rising energy that rises in the body. You could even think about it in the mind or in the spirit. All right. And one of the major kind of focuses of this approach is to rise above. All right. To say the things that we think of as limited, which are mostly what we know about ourselves, to say that's not all I am. Right. Like, yes, okay, I've limited patience, or I'm, like I've limited strength, or I've, all of the ways, all the various ways that we're limited. But there's also a part of us that is unlimited, that is perfect, that is infinite, and that's what we want to identify with, right? So we want to say, okay, that's not us, and this, because we want to get to this other thing that we so rarely do we ever ponder, do we ever experience, right? Okay, so to focus on an upward direction, right? So in my school, we call that upward meditation, right? It means to rise above all of the things which are kind of like weighing us down or limiting us or putting us in a box, right? Um, and the approach of Sufism, I'd say, is a little bit different. Sufism focuses on a kind of another energetic stream which flows downward, right? Upward versus downward. What does that mean that things flow downward, right? So this is like, here's what I mean by a downward thing, right? Before anything that you do that's like planned, right? You have a thought in mind, right? And the thought usually comes from like a feeling, right? Like okay, I want to improve my I don't know, my space or something. I have a mess, I need shelves, right? So you're taking something that is intangible, a thought, right? And then turning it into a plan, okay, as in need shelves, and then you go about building it, right? I mean, and then you actually make it happen, right? So you have a real thing, right? So in like spiritual terms, right? This is energy is moving downward, right? It's going from being intangible, thoughts, feelings, right? Intangible, to tangible, a bookshelf. That's a real thing, right? So that's what we mean by a downward flow, right? So the Sufi philosophy says, look, the human being is like this, right? The human being has an intangible side. And now, so now we're really getting into the philosophy, and maybe this is stuff you are going to follow me on, maybe not, right? It doesn't matter. I'm talking about this because I think it might be helpful to you. But if it's not, it's not a package deal, right? You can say, okay, not helpful. So, but in the philosophy is like we start off as being, before we're born, right? We have a soul or an essence, right? And so we're moving in this downward direction, right? From the intangible to the tangible, right? The world of manifestation. So Sufism focuses a lot on that direction, right? And so, because it says, look, hey, we happen to be here now. We happen to be physical, tangible beings. Let's be that. Let's be human beings. We have bodies. We have a physicality. We're in the physical world. Um, let's focus on that stream of energy which falls down like rain, right? And become fully human, right? So that we understand ourselves not to just be limited beings, but that we also come into touch and understand that we have an unlimited, perfect, eternal essence, right? And that's also very real, right? Now, the difference between a philosophy and a practice, right? Like I can say these words and maybe you nod along, maybe you agree with me, maybe not, right? But at the end of the day, how much does it really matter, right? Philosophy has to be practiced, it has to be tested, it has to be lived for it to be real, right? There's a big difference between some ideas that you have and what you really know to be true on a very deep level, like know it in your bones, right? And that is again, that's what meditation is for, right? It is to try this out and see, right? Like and by the way, I would advise you guys to take a very skeptical attitude toward this. Like, am I in the business of selling beliefs here? No, I could care less what you guys believe in, right? That doesn't matter. What I am interested though is what you experience, right? Because experience is a lot more powerful, you know? I mean, like, if you've never been in love, and somebody talks about love and maybe they say some beautiful stuff about it or whatever, maybe you believe in that, maybe not. But if you've been in love, somebody could talk about it or not talk about it. It doesn't matter because you've experienced it, right? You have your own experience of it that is far beyond what somebody could say, right? And because you can't really encapsulate that experience into words anyway, right? I mean, like, whatever you say about love is not going to, it'll at best convey a piece of that experience, right? Not never the whole thing, right? So, um, and that's kind of the difficulty of conveying anything about meditation too, right? Because meditation is not like some techniques, really. I mean, although it does have techniques. Um, and it's not really a philosophy either, right? Because we're not in a philosophy class or whatever, right? We're trying to experience it, right? That's really what we're after. All right. So I just want you, if you're going to practice meditation, you're going to try it out. It's good to have a sense of why, right? Because um, life is short, right? There's lots of things we could be doing with our time, and especially when things get difficult, um, something happens and you might say, I don't know, I said meditation is a waste of time. It's a good idea to have the why in your mind beforehand, right? Okay, so it was upward direction and downward direction. Now, there's other directions that energy can flow. Okay, so basically, like whichever way you direct your mind, that is how your energy is going to flow. Okay, so that's an aspect of, again, concentration. All right. So if you focus on rising above things, then your energy is naturally going to flow upwards. Okay. If you focus on bringing the infinite and perfect and eternal into yourself as a human being, that's a different focus. Okay. That's more of the downward focus. It might feel differently, even though you have the same kind of grand aim, right? To realize that as a human being, you contain all of this, right? You're limited, of course. I mean, it would be foolish to deny that, right? We're all extremely limited beings, um, but we're also unlimited. We're also uh, eternal beings. We also are perfect beings, infinite beings. Okay, so and that's the part that we don't often experience. That's not very often real to us. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about one other dichotomy. All right, which is the difference between a method of meditation that is more passive versus a method of meditation that's more active. Okay. So you might notice that I'm asking you to do a lot here. All right. I'm asking you to change your breath very significantly from how you normally breathe. Right. So because this is what I'm saying, right? Make your breath deeper and slower, and you to pay attention and listen to your heartbeat, and bring that into tune. Try to make your breath rhythmic as well. Try to make your breath bigger than it normally is. Oh my God! I mean, I'm giving you guys a real laundry list of things to do here, and it's difficult. I'm going to be honest, right? I mean, changing your breath is very, very difficult. It takes a lot of concentration. Um, so this is an example of an active method. Okay. Now, heart rhythm meditation is not the only active method. There's a whole class of different practices that are like this, right? So in yoga, which I know many people have done, sometimes maybe you take a yoga class and they do some breathing practices, right? These are designed, they're called pranayama, right? So it means breath discipline or breath control. Prana means breath, and yama means exercise or discipline. So pranayama is an active approach to this, right? So you change your breathing because, again, breath is a very fundamental part of our energy. So if you want to change your energy, change the way you're breathing. Okay, that's a shortcut that many traditions emphasize. Okay, so now some of you might be saying, well, gosh, I meditated before and I never did any of this stuff, right? I didn't do anything to my breath. They didn't say to do that. They said maybe pay attention to it or whatever, right? So there are kinds of meditation that are a lot more passive, okay? That basically they come from a different kind of approach, right? They say, all right, um, your body knows what to do. Your soul knows what to do, right? Like we're not trying to talk you into the fact that you're infinite. You are infinite. That's just the reality. All you're trying to do is just realize it, right? And a lot of what's in the way is like your mental concepts, the fact that you don't take the time, that you don't really try to really uncover who you are, right? Um, that you're content with a very limited idea of yourself. Um, so if we could just let some of that go, right? I mean, it's like we're the biggest obstacle, I mean, can you imagine somebody like pulling and pulling and pulling on a door, but the door they need to push. I mean, you pull really hard on a door that just like that, right? And it's not going to open, you know? So, okay, that person is in their own way, you know? Um, so the passive style approach says, look, you just get out of your own way, you know? Just stop doing all of the things that hold you back, you know? And your breath will naturally get slower, will naturally get deeper. If you take enough time, you know, you're going to settle down. Your mind is going to stop, rocketing all over the place, right? Um, and you're gonna relax, and then you'll have some of these experiences. Okay, so that is, an approach that appeals to some people. It's an approach. Both of these approaches work. Okay, let's just that's the case. They both work. Um, a more passive style appeals to some people, and a more active style appeals to other people. Right. So this is just something to keep in mind, But sometimes people will define their way as being the only way, like to say, like, meditation is doing nothing, getting out of the way, letting go, being present, or whatever, right? These are all kind of synonymous ways of saying this, taking a very passive approach. Okay, um, so like, I'm trying to give you guys a container for this, right? Like, this is a thing, but it's not the only way. Okay. Um, Now it is the case that probably the most, I don't know, popular or well-known kind of meditation, the Vipassana practice, uh, is often a very passive. It depends on how it's taught, but it's often a very, very much in this kind of more passive approach. Okay, so uh, that can be good. It's very easy to learn, um, but it doesn't suit everybody's temperament or everybody's interest, right? Um, if you have a very active mind, if you're a very active kind of person, it may be the case that an active style of meditation is better suited to you, right? Because your mind is doing a lot. You need to give your mind something to do, right? And so that's what we're doing here, right? You get your posture together, you get your focus on your breathing, and then you change your breathing, and that should keep your mind kind of busy. Um, so let's try it again. All right. Um, so our steps here are: we're going to take a upright posture and just check to make sure that you're. It's so common to do like this. Your head might be too far forward. So get your head to feeling like it's right in line. It's not too far forward. It's not too far back. Right. Pay attention to your breathing. And then you begin to change your breathing to make your breathing slow, to make your breathing deep in your belly. You can place your hand on your belly and feel your belly expanding and contracting. Make your breath rhythmic. If you can, feel the heartbeat. Maybe place your hand on your chest or your fingertips on your breastbone. Either way can be helpful. If you can feel your heartbeat, then you pay attention to the beating of your heart and bring that into tune with your breath. So 8 beats in, 8 beats out. Now, there's nothing magical about the number of beats. So if that number doesn't work for you, then you choose a different number. Maybe it's 4 beats in and 4 beats out. Maybe it's 6. You just see where your breath is right now. The one that I most often use, the rhythm that I most often use is 12. 12 beats in, 12 beats out. but I've been doing this for many years. Now, if you've managed to make your breath deep and slow and rhythmic in the way that I'm describing, then you try to make your breath more full. As you breathe out, you try to really squeeze all of the air out by tightening your abdominal muscles and drawing in your belly button, breathing all the way out, and then breathing all the way in. But try to keep your breath very smooth as you breathe in. Don't just, when you breathe out a lot, then your breath wants to just breathe, kind of rush in. Control it on the inhalation as well. And breathe in more than you normally do. The bigger your breath becomes, the slower it must be in order for this balance to be kept. Now, there's a lot to keep track of here, so maybe you're doing that, maybe not. If you feel like you're doing it, then you want to add something to it. Okay, you want to add the feeling, the energy of the breath. Okay, the feeling that as you breathe in, you are taking in energy, and as you breathe out, you are expressing energy, you are radiating energy. And in fact, our breath is the most fundamental exchange of energy that we have with the life around us. And we are becoming conscious of that. And also, we are making that energetic exchange very even, very rhythmic. It becomes very powerful. So, the downside of taking a very active approach, as we're doing with our rhythm meditation, the downside is that it's hard to learn and that it's effort to do. It's hard to do. The upside is that it can be very powerful. I mean, if you get it down, if you get this style of breathing down, and I'm not going to say that it's easy to do, it's a skill like anything else. But if you get it down, it will just turbocharge your progress. It's quite amazing. Slow down your breath and you slow down your thoughts and your feelings. It's a very powerful way of dealing with anxiety. All right, so we'll end our little practice session there. How is it going for you guys? Let's see. I did a comment here. Oh, I can feel it. Excellent. Good. Um, we're very focused on what are we getting, right? What are we experiencing? So we want to pay attention to that, right? We want to take the kind of view that whatever happens, like during the time that we're meditating, it could be, you could meditate for 3 minutes, but it's good to take the view that whatever happens during that time is significant in some way, right? It means something, like Maybe you're struggling to concentrate. Okay, that means something, right? Or maybe you really don't want to do it. Okay, that means something, right? Maybe you really do want to do it. All right, that's all right. Every experience is significant. Mm. All right, I want to make sure that I answer your questions. Does anyone have them? If you do, um, write them into the chat, um, or I want to address a couple that I got um, from other places. Um, and by the way, if you think of something later, send me a message on Twitter or Facebook, or you could write a comment on this if you want. Uh, Depends on how public you want to be. Um, all right. So one question that I got was, um, what if not much happens? What if you're like, um, what if you're practicing and you don't get very much? You did nothing much happens. Um, that's common, Um, and because here's the thing, right? I mean, like when we meditate, we are doing something very different than what we normally do. I mean, normally our attention, our focus, our energy is going outward, right? We're trying to do something, or we're trying to write something or read something, or we're trying to say something, or like our energy is outgoing outward. Okay, so it's very, very rare that we direct our energy inward to our inner world. Okay, our inner thoughts, our inner feelings, um, and because that's unusual. um, Now when we go to sleep, right? I mean, you lay down in bed and you're trying to go to sleep. Okay, this is a moment where all of a sudden your focus goes inward. But meditation is different from sleeping, right? I mean, we're not laying down. We're in a very active type of posture. Like when you sit up straight like this, your body gets a very different physiological signal than when you lay down. Like when you lay down, your body's, oh, time to go sleep, right? But when you are upright like this, your body's not thinking that, right? Your body's not, it's not getting that physiological signal. Your body is getting, oh, time to be active, time to do something, time to, time for the energy to go out, right? So, there's a certain amount of confusion that you might be in, right? If you're not used to meditating, your posture says active, but the fact that you're being still and that you have your eyes closed says be you that you're trying to do reflection, contemplation, meditation, right? This stuff. um, and it can be very difficult for your like mind to let go of so it might be that you don't get a whole lot. That's actually common, right? um, so and this is where the philosophy can come in handy, right? Like, oh wow, Dr. Bear says some mind-blowing stuff can happen. I hope that happens, or I want to experience that, right? I'm not getting that right now, but I think it will, or so it's very, very common to have not a whole lot happen. Now that's not for everybody. I mean, there's just so many different things that can happen, right? Some people have the kind of opposite, like too much stuff is happening, right? Like, oh my God, I'm feeling all these thoughts and feelings. It's just like I don't want to feel all these feelings, right? I mean, that's kind of the opposite, right? Also very common. Um, okay, so another question I want to address, which is, what if I get sleepy? Uh, Now, again, this is very, very common because if you're being still, and especially if you're closing your eyes. I mean, when do we do that, right? When we still and close our eyes when we're going to sleep, right? So your body is already kind of tuned in. I mean, your body has habits. Your body has a certain energy. Like it's like, oh, you closing your eyes now? You're being still now? Sleepy time. Um, and a lot of us are like chronically sleep deprived too. So that can come into play. You might have been tired before you start meditating, and you just didn't know it. Because you were in the flow of something. Um, so they're very common. Now, this is, by the way, this is where it really comes in handy to breathe in a way that is deep and slow and rhythmic, and especially to breathe bigger, to make your breath fuller than you normally do. That is actually one of the hardest aspects to learn of this kind of meditation practice, um, because we use just like a tiny fraction of our lung capacity, and we're trying to retrain ourselves to use more. If you breathe fully, you will not be sleepy. You will find it very easy to shake that off, right? Uh, but there's it's pretty common for people who are starting out meditation to feel sleepy. Um, don't do it at a time when you feel sleepy. That's another piece of advice, right? Like, um, meditate right before bed. No, it might not be the best time. Maybe do it in the or super early morning. That can be tough too. I mean, I've meditated in the very early morning for many many years of my life, um, but sometimes mid morning can be better. Give yourself a little time to get going. Um, you're not usually as tired at 9 in the morning. Let's say if you wake up earlier than that, give yourself an hour or two to get going. Then you might be. I mean, 3 in the afternoon. Oh, that's a tough time, right? You better really come prepared with your breathing, right? Um, all right. I got another one I want to answer, which is, what if it feels like a waste of time? Um, yeah, there's going to be times where it's going to feel like a waste of time. Um, there's going to be times. I mean, these are inner doubts and fears, right? Um, we all have a kind of fear of missing out, FOMO. Um, there's lots of other things we could be doing with our time. Should we be quiet and trying to retrain our breathing and try to experience the infinite right now, or um, maybe we should be trying to get a date or something, right? I mean, maybe this is a waste of time. Um, I have come to feel over time that the time that I've spent meditating has been some of the most valuable time that I've ever spent in my life. Um, and you know, that doesn't mean I do it all the time, though. I mean, I've done lots of other things in my life, right? A rich life involves many kinds of activities. Um, so, there is a part of ourselves that resists it, though. Because meditation is like a very unique kind of activity. It's going to cause growth. It's going to cause change. There aren't very many activities. I mean, almost everything and almost any skill that you learn is going to change you in some way, right? But meditation is just, yeah, it's incredibly unique in terms of how much that it can change you. Um, so, there's a certain part of you that resists that change. It says, like, no, I want to be how I am. Um, and that part of you might say this is a waste of time, you know. Um, and well, is it? Um, I don't think I guess it's possible to meditate so much that you say, "Hey, whoa, pull that back, do something else," you know. But that's not usually where this comes up. This usually comes up when you're just getting started, right? You're not even sure. So I would say, give it a month. Like like with anything you're trying out, give it a month. If it still feels like a waste of time in a month, then all right, maybe it's a waste of time. Benefits aside. But if that feeling passes and you start to experience real benefit, you don't want to like let that derail you from something that could be very beneficial. Um, all right, well let's do one last practice session. I'm trying to keep them a little bit short so that you guys can stay with me here. So we'll just end the class with one more little section of practice here. Okay, now you sit up straight and breathe. Pay attention to your breathing. Breathe in a way that is deep and smooth and full and rhythmic and centered on your heart. If you can't do all of those elements that I mentioned, you just do what you can. Breathing in, you are breathing in the essence of life. You are breathing in energy from the life all around you. Maybe you can draw it in from further. Maybe you can draw it in more deeply to yourself. Maybe you can fill yourself up with energy and vitality. And as you breathe out, you are radiating the energy of your heart. You are expressing yourself on a very fundamental level. We are incredibly drawn to express ourselves. Breathing out, you are expressing yourself in a very fundamental way, in a very subtle way, a very powerful one. So, breath is giving and receiving. You're receiving on the inhalation and giving on the exhalation. By slowing down your breath, you get to experience the different parts of your breath. So, you might notice how different the very beginning of your exhalation feels from the middle or the very end. And the same with your inhalation, that your inhalation feels different at the beginning when it wants to rush in than it does in the middle or toward the end. You may notice that the energy of your breath builds in power, builds in intensity, so that the end of the inhalation is just much richer and more profound than the very beginning, right? Because energy takes time to build, and the same with the exhalation. If you can feel your heartbeat, then you breathe in tune with your heartbeat. For example, 8 beats in, 8 beats out. If not, you just search for your heartbeat. Use the trick that I mentioned before. I press your fingertips on your breastbone, place a palm on your chest. Remember that everything is part of the experience. So, getting distracted, having a thought, that's part of the experience. Having a feeling that comes up, a memory that comes up, perhaps, an idea of something that you'd like to do, all of that is part of the experience, but you want to go deeper with it. So maybe you think of something that you need to do, but try to go deeper. Say there's a feeling beneath that thought, like how the waves of the ocean are the part that you see, but they're driven by deeper currents. and of course by their interaction with the air and the wind and so forth. But you want to always go deeper, right? Not stay on the surface. Say, what is the thought behind the thought? What is the feeling behind that thought? What is the feeling, the deeper feeling? All right, we'll end our session there. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and we'll have class again next week, and I'll hopefully see some of you then as well. All right, take care.